Hello, welcome to Real Talk with Jeaneen Pruitt. I'm so happy to have you here today. And today I have a very special guest, one of ladies that I admire in Midland, and it's Mayor Blong. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah. Before we start, let's just take a little peek at the real estate market, because really that's what I do. Today we have 382 active listings, 245 under contract pendings. The average sales price based on sales from January 1 through today is $417,000, and the average from the original list price to the sold list price is 95.60%. So on average, when it's originally placed on the market, it's selling within roughly 95% of that, and our average days on the market is 49 days. So there you go. That's where we're at. So hope that's helpful. Today, I was so looking forward to our meeting because I was telling you earlier, I truly admire you.
Well, thank you very much.
Even the sweet things, like I love all the recognition. I don't, on your social media, I actually
Yes.
follow that like I was reading yesterday. And I just really appreciate that. I've seen you honor city employees. I've seen you grieve losses, publicly. And I just really, was that your idea or is that just...
Yeah, so the recognition of city employees was definitely my idea to have a spotlight, especially of employees who a lot of community members would not know. We have some of our city staff that have a higher profile job and they're going to be in front of cameras and get recognition just by nature of what they do. But a lot of the people that keep our community going don't get any recognition. And so we've got people that are working at the solid waste disposal or at the water treatment facility or people that we need to live life in Midland, Texas. And we ought to know who they are and be thankful for the work that they do. So, yeah, that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree. Like Easter, that's the break when they don't come and pick up the stuff, and
Yes.
it's like, we really appreciate them.
We need them. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to ask you, and it might be a silly question, so forgive me if you think it is, but, the job of mayor for the average, I've been here almost my whole life, What does it mean to be mayor? What does it look like to be mayor? Because there's a lot of us that really don't know.
So a lot of the job is just a lot of administrative work and going through contracts and finances and making sure that the day-to-day work of our community, of our city as an entity is going well. So there are a lot of these public appearances and ceremonial things that the mayor gets to do, and I really enjoy those things. Getting invited to speak at different professional organizations or at different events in our community, ribbon cuttings, and some of those things. Those are really rewarding. But the day-to-day work of being mayor is just making sure that we're on the right track with our contracts and our finances. And so it's not nearly as sexy as some of the more high-profile portions, but it's the work that really has to be done. And so really the city staff, we have over 1,000 people that work for the city of Midland that are really keeping the day-to-day work of this community going. And the city council and the mayor function as a board to oversee that and to make decisions for budgetary issues or make decisions for contracts that we might enter into for water or for other things. And so that's the main function of the city council and the mayor.
I noticed you were on city council, and now you're our mayor.
Yes.
And did that give you a sneak peek watching Patrick do it, or?
It did, yeah. And so Patrick and I, we were friends, and I would have called us friends before then, but we really got to know each other well through serving him as mayor and me as a city council member. And we served through COVID. So the 7 people that served through that season together, that the difficulty of that time really knit us together in friendship. Even people that I didn't agree with on a lot of policy decisions or other things, they became my friends and people that I really respected and appreciated. And so I got to see how he did the job of mayor and some of the responsibilities that he had through that. Some of those things I really liked and I've imitated, and some of them I've done a little bit differently. But I think it really gave me an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, that was neat. I loved that, and I noticed there's a seat open on the planning and zoning I saw, and I thought, oh no, I don't want to be on there.
Yes, that one's that can get rowdy in planning and zoning. So that one's not an easy job.
I was watching Nextdoor and all the comments about and I'm like, oh no. I was thinking, thick skin.
I don't get on Nextdoor, so I try to stay off of there. And one thing that I probably need to say in more places, but I don't really respond on social media. I put a lot of information out on social media, but if you want to actually get a response back from me, it's better to send me an email or something like that. So any listeners that you've got that wonder about that, I just don't really engage on social media because I don't feel like it produces anything that's beneficial.
Yeah.
But if we can have a meeting or a phone call or something that's more personal, then I feel like we really can get things
Oh,
accomplished.
that's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know. Let me see. There was a couple other points. I was noticing as I was reading and doing some research that you mentioned as you were running your campaign, high quality of life and fiscal responsibility. And you guys just got like an A+ on the fiscal responsibility report card.
We did. So we do an annual audit each year. After the fiscal year, we go back and review, and we got 0 findings on
That's
this.
awesome.
The first time in 20 years. Probably longer than that, but we have a record of findings for the past 20 years. And so I think that's a huge testament to the great work of our finance director, Christy Weekland, and her staff. We've put some things in place in terms of internal controls and other checks and balances that needed to be in place. She's implemented those in the last year. And so we're really thankful for the work that they've done and their attention to detail. It's a huge win.
Well, congratulations. I read that and I thought that's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a huge
My
deal.
accountant never tells me that.
Yeah, it's a huge win.
You should come help me. No, I'm just kidding. So quality of life. I know that to me, when I read that, it means you must have had a vision when you started your campaign of what that looked like.
Right.
And I feel like I can already see evidence of you serving. But what did that look like for you in the vision?
For when I'm thinking of quality of life, I think back to, I grew up here. I was born and raised here in Midland. And so I've seen Midland over the last 40 plus years really evolve and change. And we travel to other communities just like everyone else does. And so I think to be able to see some of the things that are coming to other like-sized communities, just amenities, the sports facilities and the attractions for those areas, Midland should be able to solicit and have those same attractions here in Midland. And our community is worth the investment. And so I really believe that we have had some generations over the history of Midland where we've invested well in ourselves, and then we've had other seasons where we've not invested well in ourselves. I think that now is the time for us to make some investments to really amplify the good things to do here. Midland is such a family-oriented community, and it always has been. Yeah. And I don't want us to lose that. We don't want the industry to take over or, any other thing to come in and change us from that family-oriented, please come here, plant roots, and raise your family. And so, in order to make it continue to be family-oriented, we need to make sure we're investing in things that young families want.
I know that you've heard it. The average Midlander is 32 years old, and I'm not 32. But I was like, I'm wondering, because I've been here all my whole life, and when I was, talking about the preserve and I was meeting with them, I was so excited to see things actually happening. Because we've all talked about things and speculated and got excited about things, and then it kind of fizzles out.
Right.
And when I was reading that about the average age is 32, I wonder if maybe you're saying like the time is now, and I'm agreeing with you, if that's why it's not, I don't know if the word's easier, but if it's possible now to implement some things, if that has something to do with the demographics changing.
I think there's some motivation among some people that have the wherewithal. They have the financial wherewithal. They have the follow through. They have the commitment to the community to really make some of those things happen. I agree with you. Over my life, how many things have we heard about this? Wouldn't this be cool? And then they don't actually come to fruition. And I think that we have a group of leaders, not just in government, but a group of community-minded leaders of businesses and of churches and of other things that really see this opportunity to invest. And we're watching that continued investment take place by the preserve and the zoo and so many other things that are coming forward. I don't think that city government is the end-all be-all for some of those developments. A lot of that's going to come through private investment, but we have to have a city governance that is friendly to business investment and it's friendly to quality of life improvements. And we have not always had that in the history of Midland. And so it's one of my main goals to make sure that our city leadership at City Hall is going to receive these good ideas and help clear a pathway to make good private investments really not just possible, but help those things to succeed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, I love that. I was going to see if there was something else that kind of made me think, the population. I was looking it up. The 3% growth from 22 to 23. Is that kind of the standard you think between? I didn't know, is that normal? Because it said 136,000.
136,000 is what we received back on the 2020 census. So
Okay.
the federal government does a census every 10 years, and the 2020 census came back at 136,000. I believe that number is too low. I believe we have more people living here, and I think if you shop at H-E-B or you drive on our roads, you would agree that we probably have more people. We've actually challenged that census. We've filed through the formal process with the government to be able to challenge that census to say we believe we have more people here. We don't have results back from that challenge, but there are some different, and this is probably more detailed than you care about.
No, I love it.
But 150,000 people is a threshold that triggers a lot of things for grants and for other eligibility for certain things for infrastructure and water and other things for communities of 150,000 people and above. And so I believe we are above that number, or we're right around there, and we need an accurate count. 2020 was not the year to get an accurate count of anything.
Don't open your door. Don't answer any questions.
Yeah, there was just so much turmoil and so much change and transition, and so I believe that we need to make sure we've got that number really dialed in. And at the point that we trigger that 150,000 population mark, it changes the ballgame for several things, and so we're looking into that.
Could it change the ball game for being an ideal place to come open a certain business? So they're saying, should we go open up a Dave & Buster's? My grandkids would love having a Dave & Buster's.
Yeah. Most of the larger companies like Dave & Buster's and other things like that are looking at us as a master service area. So they're looking at our total MSA, including Odessa, Greenwood, Stanton. They would put a composite number. The number that is often used in some of those conversations is more like 400,000 for the greater area. I think that's probably a little bit lower than what the reality is, especially if you factor in transient workers that are coming in and out of here on any given Tuesday. I think we've got more people than that, but they're basing it on who lives here, who's actually paying taxes in this master service area.
There's a lot of positive. That's one thing I really have appreciated lately, and that's why I was excited again to meet you, because under your leadership, we're starting to see some positive things. Mm-hmm. There's some headaches of us growing, like the construction. I think we all go, can we go on any road in Midland without there being construction?
It's orange cone fatigue. That's what we all call it.
I'm going to use that, orange cone fatigue.
Everybody, that's what I started calling it during my campaign, and I think everyone's adopted it. So you use it too.
But, eventually it's going to be great.
It is.
When they're speaking about construction, I was reading, and you probably know more about that, the Dallas area where they built the park. Mm-hmm. It used to be an interstate, and it was like generations before that, a mayor had the foresight for growth and tunneled under. And because they had tunneled under, now we have that beautiful park. And I thought, it never dawned on me with the civil engineering, having that forward plan. Sometimes I feel like what's happening with our roads, it's addressing what we need today. And then when I was reading where they speculate our population to be in 2030, I'm wondering, Are we getting
scary.
the roads ready for 2030? Mm-hmm. Are we? That's another thing I think. Been here my whole life. It's, you're always meeting a need, and not planning ahead.
I agree.
And I don't know why that is that way, but on infrastructure, is that changing? Is that the current? Because I know we've talked about subdivisions. I've attended P&Z meetings about it, and we know roads are coming, but they're not quite able to get where they need to be yet for these developments to really succeed, or not to be a burden for the internal streets. But about infrastructure, can you guide us on any of that? Do we have a vision for us being at 200,000 people in Midland?
We do. So we are working a couple of things that we're working on. One of the main ones is the integration of I-14 and I-27. So I-27 would extend down from Lubbock to Midland and go on to San Angelo and on down to the border ultimately. And so, but the vision of I-27 ultimately is to connect from the Mexican border to the Canadian border so that we have a mid-United States corridor to be able to move food, fuel, and fiber from across the nation. And it becomes a national security concern at that point too, because we have so much traffic along the coasts of the United States. But if we had any sort of national security interruption, we would need to be able to move things internal. And so that I-27 is a really critical corridor. I-14 is a similar thing. So it would go, even numbered interstates go east to west. And so that would go between I-20 and I-10. and go from Midland and Odessa over to San Angelo. And then, so it would have the same pathway between Midland and San Angelo, Midland, Odessa, and San Angelo for I-14 and I-27.
Okay.
And so it would go further east on from
Okay.
there. So that's one vision for the future. The other thing that we talk a lot about is getting ahead of developers. So where do we see developers purchasing land, and do we have infrastructure plans for them? A good ballpark number for building the road and the other infrastructure that's needed for an extension of a new road to a new area is about $2 million a mile for one lane. So if you need a 2-lane road, then we need $4 million per mile. Or if you need a turn lane, or you add it on from there. And so that it's an expensive proposition to plan ahead for growth. We're using today's taxpayer dollars to pay for tomorrow's growth. And that takes bravery, frankly, as an elected official and as city staff to say, we're going to invest this money ahead of time when a lot of today's Midlanders don't want to pay for that. And so we face some of these challenges, and it's a difficult thing for us to navigate. And there's some folks that are in elected office that are willing to take those chances and take the hits that come along with it and spend the money to make that advanced investment. And then there's others that aren't. And so, those are the challenges that Midland has faced historically too.
Is that why, remember back when Loop 250, it just kind of was a hump and it just stayed there forever?
Yes.
And then it finally got finished?
Yes.
Because somebody was getting prepared, but then maybe the next season didn't.
Sometimes you'll see this not just in elected office here in Midland, but in other places where you'll have a visionary leader that will come in and say, we're going to invest this money and we're going to spend it. And then you have the next election cycle and everybody says, we don't want to spend all that money. And so you get somebody in there who says, let's tap the brakes on it. And so some of those projects stall out. So you have to have a continuity of leadership to a certain extent to be able to get some of those projects finished. And so that's exactly what happened in I-20 or the Loop 250. Mm-hmm. We had different leaders at different seasons who were willing to say, let's make that happen. They were also able to work closely with Austin. You can't get an interstate or a state highway completed without buy-in from Austin and D.C. You have to be able to work with not just Midlanders to get it done, but you got to work in Austin and in D.C. to get those things done. And so when you've seen significant advancements in our infrastructure on highways, it's because there was a lot of cooperation from a local, state, and federal level.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. Yeah. So we'll talk about the schools. Let's talk about schools just briefly because, we all had our wonderful day where we got to go vote and exercise. All right. I heard a lot of goods and I heard a lot of bads. Mm-hmm. But what surprised me was when I heard about the very small percentage that showed up to actually cast their ballot that day. And when I heard that, I even made a social media post about it. Like, whether we agree or whether we don't agree, that's not the point. Mm-hmm. It was only 27% show or something.
It was
so
less
low.
than that. It was staggeringly low. I couldn't rattle it off to you, but I don't think we've had 27% vote on anything.
On anything?
I mean, we don't. Midland has chronically low voter turnout. And so on some of these decisions that are made, the previous school bond that failed by, I'm going to get the number wrong, but something like 19 votes or something like that. So when you think my vote's not really going to count, they do count because there are not that many people that show up to vote. We have a special election in May to fill an unfilled council seat. And historically, those May elections are really low turnout, and it really will be determined by a very few number of votes. And so we really need Midlanders. We care about our community, but if we care about our community, that means we have to vote. And it's really important.
I really thought so, too. We left, and then I saw that statistic, and I'm like, we can't even actually say it represented the will of the community when only the smallest margin of the community went and voted.
That's exactly
so we really
right.
don't know.
It's very true.
I just thought that's interesting.
And so often the loudest, even less, we can say the will of the community is determined on social media. A lot of times we see these really conflict-riddled issues that come before city council or the school board or somewhere else, and people are like, you're not doing what we elected you to do. Well, the small number of people that are angry on social media don't create a mandate. No. So it's really important for us to be listening to the quiet conversations in the grocery store and the people that call and reach out to us who I have people that live behind me in my neighborhood they'll call and talk to me, or they'll come by and talk to me, but they're never going to post on social media. And so it's really important for us as elected officials to be in the community, to be having as many conversations as we can with as many different people in different places, to really get a sense of what does Midland really need and what do Midlanders want.
Yeah.
Because you can't make those decisions based on who's loudest.
That's a good point. In our industry, and you've heard it, and I feel like sometimes we're beating the dead horse, like we don't need to keep talking about it. But I was excited to see something to be excited about in our school system, because as a real estate professional of 24 years this month, that's the one thing we always hear about the schools. And in a lot of people's opinions, I'm not saying my opinion, but they feel like if you want to get a certain level of education, you must pay for private schools. And there's just this whole big debate. And then we have relocation. People come here and they're unhappy because they're leaving other structured school systems that they had great pride in. And I'm like, something needs to change or nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
And I was excited about the change. I personally voted for it, and I was really excited for it. And, our grandchildren are going to get to go to the new high school. And that's something that, Perry and I thought about, because we're raising our 2 grandsons. And I was like, my grandkids are going to get to, see some change, because we've had generations, me and all my friends. I mean, even my parents, grandparents, they're all in the same school. We all went to the same auditorium.
Yes. And I grew up here too, and am raising my kids in this community. I think we've watched people really understand how critically important education is in the community of Midland. And so we're working towards some solutions. And, another thing that I think is really important for us to recognize are some of the charter schools and private schools and, free charter schools they don't require tuition. But these are places we're looking for all the solutions to fit the needs of this community. And that's not a one-size-fits-all solution very often.
That's
and
true.
so I think we have a lot of groups that are working really hard. Idea Public Schools has made huge strides in achievement at their school and with other things. We have another charter I don't know very much about, but it's called Harmony Schools. They're going to be coming to Midland. So there's just and I'm mentioning a whole bunch of others that are doing great work as well. But I think we need to look at it as holistic solutions for educating kids in Midland, and they're moving forward.
Yeah, I like that. I was glad to see some positive movement. I'm excited about the preserve. I'm very excited about the zoo. Again, I know, there's 2 opinions on every single thing.
Sure.
But it's just going to be nice to have stuff to do in Midland. I think, because we all travel.
Yeah.
Typically we all leave town to go do something fun, then we come back and live our daily Monday, Friday lives. And so it's going to be nice to see that sense of community gathering. I think downtown has been wonderful.
Oh, it has.
I mean, don't you think Centennial Park has been a game changer?
Amazing.
During the eclipse, we were out there. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
It is. And we have continued meetings. We're doing some long-term planning for downtown and what we can do to change and add to. And we're going to be adding some overhead lighting and some other structures on Wall Street there adjacent to the park to really open that up too. And there's going to be a larger event so that it can spill over into Wall Street. You can walk across and eat at those restaurants and have a more free flow. We're interested in providing opportunities for more outdoor dining experiences in Midland. There's not this week with all the wind we've had, but a lot of times it's beautiful to eat outside in the evenings and to let your kids run and play in the park. And so there's a lot of vision for how we can better utilize downtown for families and continue to see that grow and develop. And so we've made a start on it, and we're continuing to press that forward. And a lot of it's not expensive stuff. I mean, obviously, some of it will cost money, but some of it is literally just stringing up lights and making sure that we are having a well-lit, safe, clean environment to be able to welcome families down there and spend more time. So.
That's really neat. I like that. Is there anything coming to Midland that the viewers might want to know? It's like, what's in the works? Is there anything that you know about that I might not know?
In terms of development?
Like, could be store, could be something
exciting. We're always working on lots of things and trying to solicit folks. And a lot of those, through the Midland Development Corporation, but then also there are site selectors who come to Midland. And a site selector is a commercial developer or a person who's coming to help those folks vet potential locations. And so we're hosting site selectors and other folks here in Midland on a regular basis and trying to move the needle forward. I don't have any of it that I can talk about yet.
That's okay.
But I do want people to know that that's a constant, regular, we're hosting people and having those conversations regularly.
Yeah, I hope that our downtown area with a new hotel, because I love going to Odessa at the new Marriott. I love the Torchy's Tacos across the street. So I hope that we start getting a few things like that, in our area. But it probably takes a lot of time.
It does take time. And, I've had some recent conversations with the group that's putting the hotel deal together, and they're moving ahead and have some really positive steps in the right direction. So I think all of this stuff takes more time than we wish it did.
Yeah.
Whether it's road construction or hotel or any of these things, it takes more time than it seems like it should. But that's just the nature of the world that we live in and the supply chain issues that we face and workforce. And so we have to be committed to the process and make sure we're seeing it through and have a vision for other good things to bring along with it. So we're doing that.
I was shocked lately, matter of fact, just today, to look and see that we're like 1.9 months inventory on the ground. So slightly less than 2 months. 382 homes for sale in Midland, Texas, with the population that we have. Yeah. And everything, of course, is not flying off the market. Everything under 300,000 is flying off the market, but everything, there's a lot of properties just sitting. I happen to be the proud real estate agent that's promoting some of those properties. And that's an interest rate. We're expecting the feds, please, in June, please get that rate down to create that buyer confidence to come back in ours. But my point is, we've always been in a housing shortage for years and years and years. This shortage, to me, in my industry, has been different because the market itself did slow down. I looked at stats, and it was 13.5% down last year. And that was really the first down that I've seen, and not my career, but in a long time. But so housing is just the biggest thing. It's so heartbreaking. We get calls all the time. And I used to tell the girls, I wish we could get a call, will you list $50,000, $300,000 houses? Yes, I would love to. Yeah. Because I know our city needs it. I know there's families that want it. And we do have those, the beaten bows, and we do have the DRs, and we're grateful for them because they are meeting a need. But when I think about affordable housing with the average sales price of $417,000, honestly, $417,000 doesn't seem very affordable. Right. For our whole community, but it is affordable in another way. But housing, do you think we're going to ever get ahead of it? Because everyone wants new construction. I'll tell you right now, Mayor, when we're out showing houses, if there's a newer one or an older one, unless you leveled Midland and you want the mature trees, they want new. As new as their budget can get. Right. So do we have any...
So we're doing some things in South and East Midland where we're taking existing lots, and we've got some developers. They're not developing at the rate or the scale that D.R. Horton or Beatonbow are, but they're doing some infill building in South and East Midland. And what we've done is we've called it the Compass Program. So the Compass Program has gone into South and East Midland, some of those streets that have never been paved in 50 plus years of being annexed into the city limits, but they weren't paved. And so we've run water and sewer.
Like over by Carver. Yeah.
We've run water and sewer and pavement to them, curb and gutter, and that allows developers to go in there and buy those lots and build a house on them. And so those fly. I mean, they don't even get listed a lot of the time because people just need them so badly. And really, it does fill a need in our community. But they're able to develop those lots so much cheaper because they're not having to pay for installation of infrastructure the way that D.R. Horton or Beatonbow neighborhoods or even name all the other builders in town. It's expensive to go into a new area and put in all of that infrastructure and then build a house. And so if we can find places that have existing lots and put houses there, that's the most cost-effective way to get affordable housing built in Midland.
I know this is probably out of your area of expertise because it has to get voted on by so many people, but I had this idea, over in Permian Estates, where they are all platted these really large double lots, I wondered, I thought to myself, I wonder if I could go in and just buy a block. I mean, this is just me thinking. Buy a block, and if I could get it rezoned and then build like duplexes, because those lots are so huge. The single family on a .40 lot over there on, doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. And I was just kind of thinking about, could that be a way we could develop a block at a time, just one block at a time, utilize the lot size? Of course, there would be a lot of variables, but I don't know.
But one of the things that I've recognized, and just in my time on council and now as mayor, is those neighborhoods are very resistant to that. They
Yeah,
bought
I
2-acre
know.
lots because they want 2-acre lots, and they want their neighbor to have a 2-acre lot too. They don't want condos or duplexes in that sort of a scenario. And so it's really a challenge to find ways to build, to develop our community wisely in a way that keeps a lot of that conflict from erupting and becoming a problem. And so one of the things that we've started doing is reevaluating the front yard setbacks and the width of houses, and having conversations about doing things smaller. Not every family wants that, and it's not suitable for every neighborhood. And so we're trying to be mindful of where we put those. But if we have people that come to us and say, hey, we'd like to develop these with this smaller concept, still with high quality, still with good materials, still meeting standards for actually the family that's going to move into this house, but we need to be able to do it smaller so that we make it more affordable. We've been really receptive in the last couple of years because I think we see this need in our community. Not everybody can have a $500,000 house. And so we have to be practical about that and think of creative ways to responsibly develop Midland and not make everybody that's an existing property owner mad in the process.
When you said that, I was like, yeah, I bet they're going to watch this podcast. Don't email me. It's okay.
Don't email me.
Don't email her. It was my idea. I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we can talk about here, because I had a couple other things. I was reading that Midland is the second richest city in the country, even ahead of San Francisco. And I think that's earnings, right? That's where that came from.
Yeah. And it's averaging out. So we obviously have significant outliers on the wealthy side, but we have a lot of people. I mean, if we're just going to really be honest about things, we have people on every part of that spectrum living here in Midland. And so, yes, it's a wonderful thing to have as much wealth and as much affluence and access to great things as we have in Midland, but we also have a good portion of our community that does not have that access. Yeah. And so I believe it's important for us to keep both of those things in perspective as we're making decisions. And so as we're listening to a challenge and we're making a zoning decision in a council meeting, or we're listening to a group that wants to come to Midland and do a certain development, we have to balance that with everyone who lives here. And that's always a struggle because they often have conflicting opinions. And so it's impossible to keep everyone happy. Yeah. And so there's a Edmund Burke quote that I can't rattle off exactly, but it basically says that your elected representative owes you their judgment, and they betray you when they sacrifice their judgment to your opinion. And that really speaks to me because there are circumstances where the right thing to do here is going to hack somebody off. Yeah. And so to have the strength of character and the unwavering principle to say, I'm going to do what my judgment tells me is the right thing to do, and I'm going to take the hits for it. I believe we need elected officials who are willing and able to do that. And it's harder than you would think it is to do it in the circumstance where you got angry people talking to you. So.
Such thick skin,
You have to have
such thick skin. Yeah, golly. One of the things that when I decided to do a podcast, to do something new. You can't keep doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. I have to be entertained as well. I always tell people, you know, you can only open the door for 23 years and write the contracts. It's like, give me something fun to do.
That's right.
And so then Ryan and I talked about it, and here I am. But I love the opportunities that we have, specifically as leaders. I don't know if you know my dear friend Kay Sutton, but when I walked into Century 21, almost 24 years almost ago, I walked in, and you know what I asked her? How much do I have to pay you to work here? I was so dumb. I didn't know anything about business or real estate. I was raising babies at home. Yeah. But she said, this is a wonderful career because there's not very, back then, I'm sure it's changed today, there's not that many opportunities where you can give a female that's driven to succeed a car keys and a briefcase, and the sky's the limit. Mm-hmm. And I remember she told me that, and it was so inspiring to me as I've been able to support my family so well over these years and serve so many thousands of people in Midland. But as an entrepreneur, I'm passionate about that. And that's why I wanted to do the show, because it's not just about real estate. What makes me tick is the opportunities we're all given to succeed and realizing how much of a difference we each have the ability to make in our soil.
Right.
And I see you making that difference, and I just love it. And I hope that we inspire more people to be courageous, and make a difference, because we're all significant and can do that. But being an entrepreneur is tough. And I was watching your podcast talking about you finding balance, and you were saying But it's tough. 3 kids
Three
and
kids,
a husband,
3
and you're the
kids.
mayor.
That's right.
And last year you had your 10th anniversary for Octane. Was that in 23?
23, yeah.
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 So-
So this was 11 years this
Yeah.
year. So yeah, it's just gone so quickly. We've, balance is a myth. We balance the things that we have to balance in that season, but there's something falling off. You got a really full plate, something's going to fall off the plate.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with, I had a mentor of mine that gave me a really great piece of wisdom, and she said, you can't always make A's in everything all of your life. And sometimes you have to decide, I'm going to make an A in parenting, and I'm going to make an A in my career, but I'm going to get a D in nutritional science right now.
Okay.
Or I'm going to get, and there you have to figure out what those things are. I'm going to get a D in my laundry, or you have to let some
Yeah.
things go. It's not reasonable for women to believe, or men to believe, that we can be all things to all people. And so for me, those things are making sure that I'm really caring well for my marriage and for my family, for my kids. Nutrition is a really big thing. I am really, really faithful to cook our meals on the weekends and prep for the week, so that I'm making sure that we're eating healthy food. I've actually recently started making our own bread, and so there's a lot of those things.
Do you do sourdough?
I do sourdough,
Yeah.
and I'm actually even tiptoeing into grinding my own wheat berries, because they get so much more nutrition from that. So that's a focus for me. But I do that on a Sunday evening. I have a process where I meal prep it and I get it all ready, and I make all of that on a Sunday evening, and then we have it for the week, so that when we come home, because I'm really committed to doing this job as mayor with excellence, and making sure that I'm present in the community, I'm at events, and I'm taking this job really, really seriously. But in order to make all of those things happen, I have to spend my weekends planning ahead for it, and it's just the only way that it can work.
That's true, too, because, we all do sports, right? We all
Yeah.
raising kids, and they're busy in sports. And those practices last, I'm like, how do you expect us to function as a healthy whole family when they're out on the field? I mean, but of course, you can tell I'm probably not into sports just like some people, but it's really hard. Like even
is.
dinner time, you end up eating out of a bag, which I don't like either. I love to cook and eat at home as a family.
I think you have to say no to things sometimes, though.
Yeah.
We've kind of stuck to a one thing at a time per kid. So each kid gets to choose the thing that they're doing for that season. And then if you don't like it, then you finish your season and you can choose something else next time.
Oh, okay.
But you don't all get to play 4 sports every season, or even 2, because we just can't make that happen. And so that for us has worked well, to have some boundaries built around it. We want you to develop your body and grow and succeed in those things, but we're going to put some boundaries around it too.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
That's a good idea. I'm glad you said that, because it's always the tips. I wanted to get a sourdough starter kit.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that on Amazon. I was like,
You don't need a sourdough starter kit.
You don't?
I can share some starter with you.
Oh, I would love
Get
that,
you
because I
started.
thought that was the hardest part, right? The starter.
Well, you have to either grow the starter or get the starter, and then you have to keep feeding it. That's really the hardest part, is keeping it alive, because you
Oh.
have to feed it every week.
Every single week. Oh, wow. That's really cool. Yeah, we'll have to share that. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just glad. Was there anything else you might want the listeners to know, or the viewers? I can't ever tell if they're going to listen to us or watch us, but I
Yeah.
guess it being a podcast, they're probably going to watch. Anything we need to know lately, or 2024 looking forward?
I think it's really important what you kind of opened up with about getting voters out to the polls. We're going to have this May election. We're going to have another election in November that's critically important locally. We have 4 city council seats that are up for re-election in November. And so that's going to be really important. We're going to have school board and county commissioner seats. We have lots of local things that need our attention, and we need to be well informed when we get to the ballot box. And so I think one of the main things that I would encourage listeners to do is research who these candidates are and really learn about them, and make sure that you're talking to people in your own sphere of influence. I think that's really critically important. We are in the middle of a big transition as a community. Because we are so young, because we have this leadership change that's happening in our industry also, we have all of this change that's happening in our community. We're at inflection points at every single election cycle. We can't skip any of them. We don't get to take a break from this.
Yes.
We have to push forward and get it done. And so who we elect is really, really important, and we need to take that seriously. And I think the other thing I would say, just from a entrepreneurialism and motivational side of things, is this is the community where we're living right now. And if we want it to look different, we're going to have to get in there and do the work to make it happen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so whether you're in real estate or you're a stay-at-home mom or you're working in oil and gas, you have a voice and you have something to contribute to this community, and we need you. Whoever you are, we need you to be able to step forward.
You know, we had all the big lawsuit settlement for National Association of Realtors with the Department of Justice, and we've got our industry is going to completely change, and it's been a long time since we've had a significant change. Possibly mid-July, but I'd heard a speaker talk about that, and it really helped me even at our office about let's handle it with grace. You know, there's hurting people, there's stressed people, there's ill people. There's a lot of things going. People are fighting battles we don't even know they're fighting. And so let's approach all of this with grace.
That's right.
And that seems to be helping. And I know, because if we all come from a place of grace, then usually we're going to find that common denominator, that common factor, don't you think?
Oh, I think so.
And I hope that as a community, like you said, my opinion, your opinion, their opinion, but if we all approach it from a place of grace,
right,
you know, we'll get there.
Well, and I don't know if you've heard the saying before, but in Midland, I want us to be a place where we attack problems. We don't attack people. And if we're going to aggressively go after whatever the problems are that we face, but we're going to do it in a gracious way and a loving way to the people that we're around, we really can solve problems.
Yeah.
But if we come in with an aggressive, angry rhetoric that turns people off, it makes our problems even more difficult to solve. And there's just no reason for that. So,
yeah, I like that. Thank you for your time today.
Yes.
I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for joining us. Yeah.